Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new video here on the channel. So today is Friday, April 9th. So naturally, not only did I hold up the right number of limbs attached to my hands right here, but secondly, there's a premiere occurring later on in the channel, which is going to be for 1000 subscribers special, as I shout out more SkyTubers in a huge SkyTuber showcase similar to that of what I did for Nobody Uploads Skylanders content anymore, because I'm here to prove that statement false. But regardless of all that, it's also been 2 weeks since I looked at giving one new legendary to every single element of Skylanders. Yes, that's right, that video turned 2 weeks old on this very day. So naturally, we've looked at the potential for legendaries that we never got. You know, characters like Legendary Ember never saw the light of day. But that got me thinking, what about the legendaries we already have? How about we celebrate what we have rather than we, you know, reap over what we never got? So naturally, there's a video from the channel's past counting down exactly the top 10 favourite legendaries in my personal opinion, and so I feel like it's about time to revisit that video so that then naturally it can meet the eyes of more of you guys and you can check it out not only in its original glory but also to spice things up. I have some Giants music in the background, as you can no doubt hear so already. So yes, I have indeed added the Giants background music so that we can take a look back at one of the channel's older top 10s known as my top 10 favourite legendary Skylanders. Without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Man, there are a lot of legendaries and Skylanders, so a while back I decided to count down the top 10 most unique variants, and the main reason none of these legendaries was on it because, well, just look at how many legendaries there are here. That's the complete opposite of uniqueness. But that did give me an idea for a new top 10, which we shall be counting down today, that being the top 10 legendary Skylanders variants. So basically, anyone on this list is a contender for the variant. Except these two. We all know that these two ain't getting it, so get the heck out of here. I mean, like, seriously, I like the red and gold, but did they have to be of a legendary name? They really do not fit in amongst the rest of these characters, which have a very fitting colour palette, each and every one of them. But without further ado, we're going to count down the top 10 legendary variants of Skylanders. Now, this is based on the variants colour scheme alone, so their in-game capabilities is not part of the list, so I could care less if a Skylander sucked in game as long as their figurine looks good and the colour palette works for the design. That's all what matters. So without further ado, let's get on in to the countdown. Coming in at number 10, we have Bushwack. Now, this legendary variant is awesome because it's very well detailed due to the natural design of Bushwack being so detailed. But what really makes this design stand out for me, at least on a colour palette basis, is the hair. Now, having his hair become gold is just very standy outy, you could say. A better word is, or a better way to phrase that, basically is the fact that I feel as though the gold hair stands out, you could say, and it also makes for excellent nicknames of Goldilocks right here, I mean Bushwack. Apart from that, it's also great to see his armour in black and then everything else in gold. It creates a nice contrast just like the other legendary variants do. But the only reason why Bushwack here, despite the uniqueness the design creates for a legendary based character, despite all that, the colour palette doesn't work as well for this design as it does in later designs, which is why Bushwack can't get any lower than number 10 all the same. Okay, so when I first saw Rollerball and Skylanders Swap Force, I thought she would make a great legendary variant, and unfortunately the Swap Force version of her never got such a thing. Luckily, though, once Imaginators rolled around, not Imaginators, Superchargers, sorry, Bone Bash Rollerball here did receive a legendary, and it was awesome. The gold and the black really works for this design right here, and just like Bushwack, it does kind of stand out, especially with the Goldilocks based hair, as you can see again, and the fact that it's braided adds even more detail and uniqueness to it. And really, the only flaw I can come up with this character is that the colour palette does fit more than Bushwack, which is why she is lower on the list than him. But really, there is a lot of detail lacking in this one, unlike the Bushwack figurine, because I feel like having these bracelets black would be so much more cooler, personally, and then maybe elements of the glove should be black as well. So above all, adding in a bit more black to contrast with the gold would have been cooler to see, I would say, but as a figurine by itself, it still works. And not to mention, in-game, she does look awesome as well. That's one thing I did forget to mention in the intro. Their in-game appearance is noted, even if their gameplay is not. Okay, so coming in at number 8 right here, we have Deja Vu. So basically, the reason why I think the legendary like colour scheme really suits this design right here is, again, because it creates a nice contrast, a bit like with the previous legendaries, the black and the golds, which I'm not going to repeat that from this point onwards because that would just be silly, wouldn't it? But apart from that, I just love the fact that the lightning bolts are in gold. You know, it's very fitting for lightning bolts to be as such. And then the hair in black looks so much more better than purple. It feels more natural and more relatable on a character basis. And above all, I just prefer this colour scheme to the original for this basis, for this design, even for the basis of this design, I could even say, because as I said before, the hair feels more natural and the lightning bolts stand out a whole lot more. The only flaw I have with this design is weaponry, because weaponry was kind of gold to begin with, so it doesn't really make the weaponry stand out with this variant in comparison to the original, but still, it's a great variant all the same. Coming in at number 7, we have Deja Vu. Wait a minute, I'm gonna sense Deja Vu. Okay, so the true number 7 is one of these swappers right here. Now, as you can see, they are swapped over because I think they look incredibly cool like this, because having the blacks and the gold still mixed together, despite the fact that they are swapped, just looks really, really cool in my personal opinion. So, of course, we are going to swap them back, and we're going to select one for the number 7 slot. Now, whilst I really like Legendary Night Shift, the boxing gloves in particular look very, very cool, and the gold and the black, much more suiting for this character, this design, actually. And then on top of that, the hair and the face also feel more vampire-like, so I do prefer the Legendary skin of this guy. But overall, he's not one on the list, because instead Free Ranger takes this slot, purely because I think the gold and the black just looks so much more cooler on him instead. Like Deja Vu, I love the gold lightning bolt on him, but what's even cool about this guy is the padding. The padding in gold looks extremely awesome. Same with the tornado as well. A golden tornado, how can you not like that? And not to mention the black mixes in with the rest of the tornado. So above all, the black and golden tornado, as I've said before, even though I said I wouldn't bring this up again, but still it creates a very nice contrast in the colours. And not to mention the weaponry here is a whole lot more gold than it was before, and the weaponry in gold just works a whole lot more and stands out a whole lot more than what Deja Vu's did, which is why Free Ranger is at number 7 on the list and Deja Vu is not, despite the joke at the beginning right now. So above all, Free Ranger just looks incredibly cool, and I really love the gold and the black for this design right here. It's really fitting for it all the same. Number 6 is Chop Chop. Now, of course, Chop Chop was going to make the list. Now, having the bones in black might not feel realistic, but it's so much more cooler looking. And what really makes this variant stand out is the fact that there's so many different colours going on here. So we do have red on here, which I suppose is what is the spark that ignited these monstrosities. But enough of that, we're here to celebrate a good legendary character instead. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of different colours here to contrast, and above all, like, before I was moaning about how there wasn't enough black on the characters to help contrast all the gold, well, here, there is a perfect amount of each colour. Like, sure, the handle could have been doing with being a different colour, but apart from that, the rest of the colours here are perfectly executed, so there's enough of each colour, and that's why I love this variant so much. Not to mention, just like all the other characters on this list, it really suits the design. Like, gold and black armor just looks so much more cool on an armor basis than what blue and yellow does. So yes, it's a very nice variant. It really stands out. It blends the colors together very nicely. So above all, I just love this variant, and that's why it's at number 6. All the same, man, I say all the same a lot. All the same, ha ha ha. Coming in at number 5, I believe. Yes, I believe correctly. We have Blades. Now, of course, Blade's made the list. First of all, he's a dragon, and second of all, he has armor. Armor and dragons together make for great legendary color palettes, honestly. So the skin tone and the armor, them contrasting each other, is very nice. Even. So the fact that it creates a better contrast between the biology of the character and the armor he wears makes the legendary variant naturally stand out more, and the colour palette really fits the design because of it. Now, yet again, I wish that this element on the helmet here was gold to create a greater contrast from what it does already. But as things stand, it's still detailed, it's still good to look at, and it still fits this design all the same, with weaponry for wings. Dragon wings, those would be tasty, but I wouldn't dare do that to a dragon. But point is, those two design elements coupled with the skin just look better in gold, and the armor just looks better in black, because that's more of a traditional armor color than what his regular armor is, I would say. So yes, Blades is indeed an awesome variant, hence his slot at number 5 on the list. Those viewers who are very observant would notice that Spyro was lacking in the intro, and that's not because this variant is not awesome, it's actually because it is. In fact, it is so awesome that I didn't want it to come in and upstage the others, hence it was not in that intro all the same. But anyway, what really works for Spyro is, well, the same reasons for Chop Chop and Blades combined. He's a dragon, which means the black and the gold for him looks incredibly cool because it just fits the dragon-based aesthetic. And then there's also, as I was kind of alluding to with my thumbs before, more black on the wings. It does help distinguish between the layers of the wings, which is so much more cooler than if the whole wing was gold. So yes, there is a bigger amount of detail on this character, and the colour palette really suits the design. Two things which make for an awesome legendary, hence he's made number 4 on the list right here. As for number 3, we have Chill. Now, one of the most awesome things about this character is easily her light core effect, which I really like, as you are, of course, about to see. So yeah, the light core effect is very, very strong. You can tell about that even in the light. But apart from her light core effect really adding to the whole legendariness of her design, there's also like the shield that looks so much more better in gold with a clear like plastic around it. But on top of that, the armor just looks so much more cooler in black and gold. Honestly, a helmet like this just feels like it was made for a color palette. So, color palette like this even. So above all, the color palette really fits the design as per the norm, and the light core effect really adds to the whole standing outingness. If that isn't a word, then it is now because I said so. But point is, it really does help this figure stand out. That light core effect all the same. And the black and the gold really make for a very awesome character, which brings out the best of her design elements thanks to the colour palette. Hence why light core legendary Chill makes number 3 on the list. Now, I've kept the portal out for this one because next up we have legendary light core Grim Creeper. Now, unfortunately with Grim Creeper, his light core effect isn't as good as light core Chill's, but you can still somewhat see it, I suppose. But for light core effect, whilst it does bring down this figure, cannot stop it from being the near perfection that it is. The scythe in blue, his gloves in blue, and his face in blue, not to mention the gold hood and the gold clothes on top of that. It's just this colour palette even is so much more fitting of this design. Honestly, this design feels like it should have that gold and blue aesthetic to it, rather than the black and the grey, which has no contrast in itself whatsoever. So this greater contrast in the figurine, and not to mention the colour palette really fit in this design, is really what makes this guy number 2. And in fact, he would be number 1 if it wasn't for the perfection that is legendary Igniter. Of course this guy made number 1. His weaponry looks so much more cooler in black, and not to mention the fire aesthetic around it. You know, it looks like the weapon has been burnt from the fire, so that's really what makes the colour feel more authentic with this base design right here. So above all, Igniter's design is the one that fits the legendary aesthetic the most by a long shot, and not to mention the colours do bring out a greater contrast and help this figurine stand out even more than the original, which is really saying something when you consider how much the original stands out to me as is. But yet again, as I always do, there is a small problem with legendary Igniter. If only he had black sleeves right here, in that case he would be perfection at hand. But what makes this guy better than the other armoured legendaries like Blaze and Chop Chop is the fact that he has a turtle shell back here, which makes this design much more unique compared to them, and yet again, it creates for so much more detail on the figurine. Like, above all, I cannot emphasise just how great this colour palette looks with this character and how fitting it is, as I mentioned before, with the whole burning based aesthetic as well. So yes, having the flames and the legendary in combination with one another makes for a very detailed figure, which is very good to look at. And above all, it's my favourite legendary, just, well, first of all, for the fact that it's Igniter. I cannot help with my personal bias, I am sorry. But apart from that, I just feel like Igniter's design is the one that warranted a legendary form the most, hence why we have Igniter at number 1 on the list. Now that that list is said and done, get used to the fact that I'm re-uploading a bunch of old top 10s purely because I feel like a lot of them were really good and you guys deserve the possibility of being able to bear witness to them, considering that they were uploaded back when the channel was far less popular than it is now. But naturally, putting all of that aside, this was a really fun video of mine and I really enjoyed revisiting it alongside all of you guys. So let me know in the comment section below how wrong I was and what your favourite legendaries are. But regardless of all that, I will of course, as always, be seeing you in the next video, and until that moment arises, peace!